Hi, this is Liv Morgan, and you are listening to No One Knows, a deep dive podcast into the mysterious death of Joann Matouk Romaine. Hello, Michelle. How are you?
Hello, Liv.
You're alive. You're on the phone.
I am. She's here. She made it.
Okay, perfect. So we've got Michelle and Kelly on the line. We are talking with them today. I'm going to kind of leave it up to you guys. Let's chat where we're at with everything right now. Obviously, we're dropping this on what would have been your mom's 70th birthday, which is Tuesday. And we're just going to kind of chat further about the case, chat about her, kind of remind everybody why we're doing this, and where we're at with everything now. So whoever wants to go first, I don't know if Kelly, Michelle, or if you guys both want to go. I know once all of us girls start talking, we usually just continue to talk forever. So
Forever and ever.
literally.
Right. I think, we sit here 14 years later and kind of reflect on, everything that we've been through trying to pursue justice. And we went from, trying to first, approach the police thinking they would do the right thing, to realizing that they were corrupt and, hiding, the truth of really what happened, covering it up. We had to hire attorneys and get, reports FOIA'd. Then we found out that there was, even more corruption than we had even imagined. So then we had to sue the police and the police department and the city and Tim Matouk, of course, to uncover even more mind-boggling revelations of other criminal activities and sinister crimes by, the police officers and, Tim Matouk. And these are things that were revealed in depositions that are in, public record. These are things that, licensed attorneys sat in and listened on. Chief of police sat in and listened on, knowing that there was other criminal activities going on. And they turned a blind eye and continued down a path of still trying to cover up what, had happened and, other things that evolved during the depositions. We were told by the federal judge that this was, very disturbing, and there were a lot of unanswered questions, and, that she also believed that there was something very wrong here, which is why, when people, see, oh, they lost the case, but we truly didn't lose the case. I mean, the public needs to know that the police department had to pay for all of their defense. If you lose a case and there's no merit to it, then I would have been responsible for all of their attorney fees, and they were responsible for their own, because the judge knew that what we were saying, there was truth to it.
Just not enough evidence to get us where we need to be now.
So the evidence that they were looking in these types of cases, we would have had to have a phone call, a recording of a police officer saying, yeah, go ahead and kill her and we got you covered. And that's something that we're clearly never going to have. But we had a contradictory timeline. We had sinister phone records. We had, the police showing up at our house asking if my mom was missing when she hadn't been reported missing, and it was my car. And the list just, continues to go on and on. But at the end of the day, from going through all of these different avenues, to Netflix picking it up, to Karen Drew doing a documentary on a Channel 4, We've been in the Daily Mail. We've been in, all different, magazines and newspapers all over the country. Crime Junkies picked it up. Now you're doing your thing. And I think, as time goes on and there's more evidence that keeps building with this case, and we're uncovering more and more, from the initial suspects involved. And it just becomes a point where, you can only continue on so long committing these types of crimes and covering them up before you're going to be caught.
Agreed. 100%.
And so I think that's, that's the truth of, where we are today and where we're sitting today. And I think we have a stronger stance now than we ever have had. And, just because the court, did not charge anybody does not mean that the court did not believe that there was fault by the police officers in this case.
Yeah. And like you said, kind of going back to where you were needing some sort of recording, phone tat, something of somebody saying that she would need to be killed. We're also looking back in 2010 where their technology is not what it is today. So there wasn't Ring cameras, there wasn't social media like it is now. I mean, we're looking at a total different realm of when this occurred. This isn't, this isn't, if this case happened today, they would have been caught immediately.
Right.
But not only that, now we're going back and we have talked about, hundreds of times the phone records. And we've, gone through how many pages, hundreds of pages of phone records. If we would have had all of this initially, I think the outcome could be different in not having to go 14 years with trying to fight for justice.
Yeah, and I think, that's something that we should reflect on today is those phone records, because those phone records are very interesting, for
Agreed.
multiple reasons, multiple players in the phone records. And I know that's something you covered briefly in one of your last podcasts, but I think, us kind of taking a deep dive into those phone records today would be interesting, for everybody.
Amazing. Yeah. So what I'm going to do, go ahead, Kelly.
I was just going to say the phone records, they definitely tell their own story.
They really do. And do you guys want to tell everybody how the phone records came about? Because the phone records were not initially, you guys didn't get these in 2010 when your mom went missing.
No, so we ended up having to sue the police departments. And in doing so, we obtained these phone records, but we did not get them easily. Tim Matouk fought for us to not have them released. The court said that they should be released to us. We received them. We saw some questionable phone calls, during the time that she was missing and the night that she disappeared and the days after. But there were so many things in the case that were so disturbing, from the timeline to the Coast Guard to, the fact that she didn't really drown and it was a dry drowning, and, the cops running over to Canada and saying she was mentally ill and suicidal when she had no history of mental illness. I mean, there were so many facts in the case that just kept, pulling at us that it was not that easy to focus on these phone records because there were so many different dynamics happening. But now that we've had some more time and you've taken a deep dive into it, I think we've really, you've been able to uncover, some people and times and time frames that have really, illuminated, sinister activity, more sinister activity, I should say, than we even knew about.
Agreed.
So let's talk about, Tim Matouk's phone records.
Yeah, so the phone records were, they got them in 2016, May 23rd to be exact. So, almost to the day. But so the phone records, the problem with these are we only have from January 1st until the end of March of the year that Joann went missing, 2010. And I know I've spoke with you girls. We wish we could get, we would have been able to get more. The problem being is they basically had told you guys, this time frame of when your mom went missing should be the only thing allowed on the record for her case. So anything that happened before then, so if there is anything in December, November, October, September, any of those times, we don't have them. So we're starting at January 1st of 2010. And girls, I just resent you guys the updated one in a text if you guys want to pull it up while we're talking. So we've actually gone through line by line and followed each phone call.
Right.
The first time looking at it, I remember I called you girls and I was like, what the fuck is this stuff? Like, this is like, there's so many names, so many people. And the biggest thing that I kept coming back to was you guys kept telling me, like, these are his personal cell phone records. These are not his work. This is not his work phone. This is not anything. This is personal. Right. I was like, okay.
Yeah, this is on his own time that he's making these calls.
Yes.
And by the way, I've never seen a man talk this much on the phone.
Me neither.
He talks more than
ridiculous.
any female. I've never seen. It's insane.
Yeah.
That he has that much time on his hands to make that many phone calls throughout the day. But that's another story.
It really is. How long did it take me to go through 100 pages of phone numbers? It was...
Oh, right. You've been doing this for a month, 2 months. It's been a minute.
Yeah.
So he's very chatty.
Yeah, he is. So first things first, looking at these, we're pulling up here. Oh, Kelly, you said it won't open for you?
No.
Let me see. Michelle, did it open for you?
I don't have access to it right now.
Okay, I'm gonna send them to you guys because I want you guys to be able
but
to...
I know, off the top of my head, just kind of, what we kind of uncovered. And so let's talk about, persons of interest or people that were calling him on his personal cell phone that should not be calling a cop. Okay,
Agreed.
Let's start with multiple strip clubs calling him.
Yes.
Not like he's calling to make a reservation and go to the strip club.
Which the strip club is totally legal. Everybody can do that if they'd like. It's
absolutely.
The fact that
nothing wrong with that.
Yes, it's the fact that the strip club is calling him and the conversation lasts for more than 2, 3, 5 minutes. They're lasting 10, 15, 20-minute conversations.
So what are you talking to a strip club manager about? And what are they calling you about? You're a cop.
Yeah.
So that just goes back to, what people think this involves, right? This has something to do with drugs. This has something to do with sex trafficking. That he's involved with numerous organized crime.
Agreed. And to go back to the
umbrellas.
organized crime, there is a gentleman on here listed, Marco Rubiano, who is now deceased. I have heard through the grapevine, and I know you guys have heard multiple from different avenues, that he was a well-known cocaine dealer in the Metro Detroit area.
Right. So what is a cop doing talking to a high-level cocaine dealer on his personal cell phone?
Yeah, and I actually have on here, because I'm getting ready to send you guys, like, the breakdown of everything. He talked to Marco Rubiano, like, a lot. Like, this wasn't
we were saying over 50 times in a span of 3 months.
I mean, like, a lot. Yes. Yeah. So, and this is just in the 3 months that we can see. And what I find,
that's what we can see.
What I find so intriguing, and like what I was telling you guys too. So, Marco Rubiano, okay, known cocaine dealer, whatever, that's totally fine. But there's like a pattern to everything. So, the biggest thing that caught my eye was Bill Matouk. Bill Matouk is your mom's brother who owns the Woods Wine and Liquor Store. Now, the biggest thing for me here was I had a family member of your guys's tell me that Tim Matouk and Bill have some sort of connection at the Woods Wine and Liquor, right? They see Tim Matouk there all the time. They don't know what the type of, relationship is between them, but he's there a lot. They see him go in and out. Tim's younger brother, who does not speak to him, received a call from Bill Matouk right after Joann went missing. And it was either the night your mom went missing, or I think it was the next day, and had asked him for Tim Matouk's information because he was in law enforcement, and Bill thought that Tim could be, some sort of help in finding Joann, right? But the problem is, he's calling and asking for Tim Matouk's phone number. Okay, so your mom goes missing on...
She goes missing on the 12th. On the 13th,
yes.
Bill Matouk calls Tim Matouk's brother and says, hey, I need your brother's phone number.
Yes.
My sister's missing. Maybe he can help us. Come to find out once we get Tim Matouk's phone records that Bill Matouk and Tim Matouk talk 3 to 4 times a day.
Multiple times a day.
You have his phone number.
Mm-hmm.
You have his phone number. What are you calling Tim's brother asking for his phone number as if you guys are not associates?
And what's crazy is,
again, more sinister, more sinister acts.
Which is weird because it almost feels like they're trying to put a moment of separation in between them. They want somebody to know that call was made. They want people to know, oh, they called me to ask for this phone number. But I actually looked back and broke it down. So the calls began on January 1st. And on Bill's cell phone, him and Tim Matouk contacted each other 148 times from January 1st to the end of March. He called...
That's a lot of times.
That's a lot of times. And that was just Bill's cell phone. Bill's home phone was 71 times. And then it was 92 times that they spoke on the Woods Wine line starting as well. But starting on January 1st. But we also have to take into consideration that Rosemary, your mom's other sister, also owns the liquor store. So there could be a possibility that the wine store, he was also talking to Rosemary. But 92 times at the wine store, 71 times Bill's house, 148 times on Bill's cell phone.
That's insane.
So we're at 311 phone calls.
Yes, starting January 1st.
1.
Yep.
And the end of March. And he's calling, asking for his phone number.
Yep.
On January 13th.
Yes.
As if they don't
know anything about anything.
Which I also think,
there.
for context, it should be important to note, too, that Bill Matouk was never out the night that your mom was missing. He was, once your mom was missing, you guys are contacting family frantically. Friends and family are meeting you guys at the water's edge at St. Paul's. They're trying to help you look for your mom. Bill goes to fucking bed.
Yeah, he goes to bed. He refuses to get out of bed. If your sister's missing, wouldn't you get out of bed? I mean, again, these are just behaviors that are more than odd.
Mm-hmm.
They're disturbing. And then let's go, fast forward to that week. Every single business on Mack Avenue in Grosse Pointe, in every home, had a missing flyer for my mom. A liquor store refused to put one up. Why?
His own sister's missing, and he refuses to put her picture in the window of the store that your mom's parents owned originally.
Right. And their reasoning was it's bad for business. I'm sorry. What? Bad for business? Your sister's missing, and unless you know exactly what's happened to her, I don't know why you wouldn't be putting a flyer up.
So obviously for you girls, this is when your red flags really, you already had red flags up because your mom had mentioned, she had told both of you girls, if anything happens to me, look to Tim Matouk.
Well, we knew it was Tim.
Yes. But this is just really putting the nail in the coffin for you.
Now this reeled Bill in, right? Because Bill was not on the spectrum from the get-go. It was Tim.
Mm-hmm.
But then But then when he does that, when this happens, we say, wow, Bill is really involved with Tim. Like
Yeah.
they're connected in a way that we never really knew, but now we know that this goes, way deeper than we thought.
And I want to go back to, for a second while we can, the day before your mom goes missing, because I think the phone records say a lot. So, for the record, Richard Coretti and Tim Matouk are brother-in-laws. Richard Coretti is a sitting judge. He is married to Tim Matouk's sister, Nancy Coretti. Was, now divorced. Now I think they're kind of going on vacation and hanging out together again. Who knows? But I heard that they're back finagling with each other. So on the 11th, the day before your mom goes missing, he talks to Coretti. And then at 2:50 p.m., there's an incoming call for 2 minutes from a Canada number. And this to me is like caught my attention immediately, because obviously for those of you that have followed the case, we know that Joann's body was eventually found in Amherstburg, Canada.
So what is a Canadian number doing calling?
And the biggest thing with the Canadian number that I actually broke down just a little bit ago too was that they were only contacted like 3 times. So this number was like the day before she went missing, and then it was in the midst of when she was missing, and then like a few days after she was found.
Which is, again,
and it's 2 separate. Oh yeah, right. 2 separate Canadian phone numbers. But what I also thought was crazy was when he's talking to these people, there's this, you can see this pattern. So on the 11th, he has normal conversations. On the 12th, the day your mom goes missing, his first conversation is at 9:21 a.m. with Richard Coretti. And then this is where things start getting weird. So we talked about Marco Rubiano. 2 calls are made with Marco Rubiano in a total of 7 minutes. William Hanger. Do you girls want to elaborate on who William Hanger is for listeners?
William Hanger was a individual that was on the narcotics squad with Tim the night that my mom disappeared.
Yeah, technically was Tim Matouk's boss with the Michigan State Police.
He's the one that claimed it was highly probable that he could leave and nobody would know, yet nobody ever saw him, that night at work.
Yeah.
So there is no eyewitness that puts him at work or at the scene at work. But there is an eyewitness that puts him at the scene of the crime.
Correct.
So let's talk about, that a little bit more.
Yeah. So we've got William Hanger he speaks with, and then we have who everybody still is questioning us about, Ed Milam. We've spoke with Ed Milam. We've had him in and talking to him. You guys have had him in for, questioning. He claims this phone number's never been associated with him, yet this phone number comes up on every sort of record, and it follows him at every address he's ever lived at, every job he's ever had. There's 2 phone conversations with him.
It's pulled up on every single database known to man that follows his name and every address he's ever lived at. Now, Scott Lewis has been doing this for 30 years. He was an investigative TV reporter for 25 years, then turned private eye. He's never seen databases be inaccurate. Maybe 1, but not 3, right? If all 3 hit the same person and the same addresses, then there's, 100% certainty that that's the person that phone number belonged to.
And we should probably elaborate on that. Kelly has sent, I don't know, Kelly, if you want to chat for a second about what we've done to try to get in contact, just for a second, then we'll go back to the records. But
yeah, so we've reached out to Ed's ex-wife. We found her on social media, and Liv reached out first and was blocked immediately. So Michelle followed up like right after that happened, and she was blocked immediately. And then I reached out to her right after that happened, and my messages are currently, I was not blocked, but it's not reading as like she's seen the messages, nor has she responded or blocked me. And we tried to like call her through the Facebook app or whatever social media thing where you can call through the messenger, and it wouldn't allow us to call her because we're not connected, like we're not
friends on social media. Yeah,
on social media, so it wouldn't allow the call to go through. But it sent her a message saying that we were trying to contact her, and she still has not reached out. So we are still hoping that she will contact us so we can put a couple more pieces together.
Well, yeah. And the reality is, look, every database goes back to him. It tracks back to him. That's his phone number. He's saying that's not my phone number. But the reality is there's a 99.9% chance that's his phone number. And the only way that we can, we're saying, yeah, it's you. He's saying, no, it's not my number. So we need somebody to confirm that knew him, ex-wife, current wife, sister, brother. It doesn't matter. Did he ever have this phone number? I think our next step is to contact his last work of employment and ask them, was this phone number in his employment file?
Yeah, so if anybody listening if anybody listening has contact to Pepsi, because we've tried to get through to anybody in the Metro Detroit area and I cannot get a hold of anybody in like the HR department. It's all like, do you want to set up a vending machine? Do you want to? So if anybody, one of our listeners can help us out, we would love that. And especially with Ed Milam too, what I thought was weird, girls, when we talked to him was he had told us, like, don't call my ex-wife. Don't call my ex-mother-in-law. He was like very particular about that.
Right.
And I remember telling you girls, like, I highlighted it right away and was like, call them because that's weird.
Yeah. When somebody tells you not to do something, then you automatically want to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And aside from that, him just knowing so many details about the case, but then initially when we called him, he had said, who are you calling me about? Like, he acted like he didn't know anything. And it was
he had no idea about this, and then all of a sudden he knew everything about it.
Yeah, so, where her body was found, how she was found, down to, like, the details of if her body would be mangled, and, like, it was very bizarre. Very weird.
It was an odd conversation.
Well, when you're involved in dumping her, I'm sure you would know, right?
Right, yeah. So
Which is what we think he is. He's, fully involved that night. He's talking to him. Tim's talking to Ed Milam right before she goes into the church, right until right around the time she's about to walk out of the church.
Yeah. And so he talks to Ed Milam, and then about 30 minutes later he talks to Bill, and then back to Marco Rubiano, back to Coretti, back to Marco Rubiano, and then this is where things start to get really weird. So at 6:56 p.m. there is a call, and it says Warren, Michigan and Pontiac, Michigan, and it's an 18-minute call. And it is with Ed Milam. And then at 7:03 p.m. is a 1-minute incoming call from Marco Rubiano. And then after that, at 7:31, there's a 5-minute call with Marco Rubiano. And then at 7:39, there's an incoming call for 10 minutes from William Hanger, which almost makes me wonder, like, was his boss trying to check on him with work? What was going on? And then Tim calls home for 1 minute, and then William Hanger calls back again, another incoming call for 5 minutes. And we have 2 unknown phone numbers that are then contacted.
But here's the interesting part. These are his personal cell phone records.
Agreed. Yes.
He has a work cell phone.
And he has...
And these people,
yes,
and including his boss, is calling him on his personal cell phone.
Well,
so that makes you wonder, what's William Hanger's take in this whole thing, and is he more involved than we know as far as covering up what happened that night?
I mean, personally, I probably think so. I think too that it's also telling that he has, a walkie system that they can contact through. How far did they say it could go? All the way, through the whole state of Michigan.
Half the state of Michigan. So what are you doing calling them on a cell phone?
Exactly. If you're sitting out for a sting that you're supposedly doing. And then what
Unless
I find...
you're saying something you wouldn't want the rest of the team members to know, because that
Exactly.
radio would be all of the team members.
Exactly. And what I find the most interesting is this is all at the same time as when your mom is going into church, coming out of the church, the phone calls are being made. And then all of a sudden, the last phone call is made to William Hanger at 8:58 p.m. It's a 2-minute call. That's it. That's the last of it. So
but you have to also identify that there's a 42-minute gap where no calls are made.
yes, there is.
And this is during the time that she has left the church, and Paul Hawk claims to have seen Tim.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important to recognize that there's a 42-minute gap of no phone calls, which is very, very odd for Tim Matouk, because he calls people at 1 minute after the next,
literally,
on a normal day.
Mm-hmm.
He never goes 45 minutes, 42 minutes without a phone call.
Agreed.
But on this particular night, there's a 42-minute gap during the time in question of when my mom walked out of the church and when Paul Hawk saw him.
Mm-hmm. And it's at that exact time, which is just so odd. That's another,
exact time.
That's another red flag for me. But not only that, looking at his phone records, so he normally will talk till pretty late in the night. So days leading up, he'll talk till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night on his phone records. And then this night, it ends abruptly. It's just very weird. And then
when you're trying to hide a body or get rid of a body, I guess you wouldn't be making a phone call.
Agreed. Yeah, and then this is where things start to get even weirder. So then there's these random phone calls with random people. So we should probably talk about the Marquants as well. I noticed a thread with the Marquants on here, and also a pattern. And I had given them a call, and the call basically started, we called, we said, hey, I explained who I was. I just asked, who are you? Come to find out, it's Tim's cousin, first cousin on his mother's side. And immediately got a hang up. So I called back right away, just kindly said, I think we got disconnected. And I'm asking him, and what does he tell me, Michelle and Kelly? He says, oh, we don't talk at all.
Yeah, we don't talk at all to Tim Matouk. And then the wife in the background is saying, the case is over.
Yeah, it's closed. Yeah, she's yelling in the background. But the thing is, obviously I'm calling you because you're popping up so much on his phone records. They spoke 71 times.
That's a lot for somebody that doesn't contact him at all.
Exactly. And not only that,
he has no contact.
They also spoke on he owned a dental lab. And that was something that we just figured out. The dental lab he spoke with, and he only spoke with him on the dental lab 5 times. But it's still weird to me because the conversations are so long when he's talking to the dental lab. 20 minutes, 19 minutes, 20 minutes, 19 minutes. It's a constant 7 minutes. And then we're like, okay, well, why would the Marquants be so weird and not, almost be cagey with information, right?
Well, the one thing I can tell you is that there's speculation that my mom was suffocated or drugged and it washed away in the water. So whether it was chloroform or something, and something compromised her breathing to where she stopped breathing, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if she was, we're not sure if, something was suffocated her or what happened, but the reality is she was dead before she hit the water. So Agreed. Whether that was some type of substance or suffocation, but again, when you're in the water for 70 days, any type of substance would have washed away. Mm-hmm. That would have been, any type of chloroform or anything like that. We do know that dental labs or dentists do have a lot of different types of drugs that could knock somebody out. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's an interesting, connection. And the reason why I'm going down that route is, why is that cousin saying he doesn't talk to him?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is in the saying what, what people don't want us to know. They're quick to be like, oh, we don't talk to that person, because every other person that I've talked to, so there's been a couple people on his phone records that have been in law enforcement. And I will tell you, there's a few of them that I don't think are involved, because the minute I called them, and I don't want to drop their names or anything, but you girls know, I've called them and they've immediately been like, what can I help you with? And I'm like, I'm looking at the phone records. Could you tell me about this? They said, oh, we worked together here. We worked on this job here. If you want to know more, I can contact my supervisor. We can set up a meeting. They're being very forthcoming with information. Almost as if they're like, yeah, I want to clear my name, or I want to explain why I'm on the phone record. But then we've got certain people that are like, oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never been on the phone records. I've never anything. Which then brings me back to, okay, we have people in law enforcement that are on his personal phone records before and after Joann goes missing. So like Andrew Pazachowski, do you guys want to elaborate on him a little bit?
Let's talk about Andrew Pazachowski. So Andrew Pazachowski was the head detective for Grosse Pointe Woods. And he's talking to Tim Matouk multiple times during the course of her had gone missing.
21 times, to be exact.
21 times.
Yes.
And the day that her body, let's talk about the day her body is found. He's talking to Tim Matouk, who's the number one suspect, but was never investigated by the local police department. He's talking to Tim Matouk when her body is recovered for 42 minutes. Can you please explain to me what a head detective would be talking to a number one suspect about off the record about my mom's body recovery? Please explain that.
Yeah.
And let's remind listeners that Tim Matouk did not work for Grosse Pointe. He worked for Harper Woods.
He's never worked for Grosse Pointe.
He's never worked for Grosse Pointe. So why are you talking to the Grosse Pointe Police Department on your personal cell phone, no less?
Yeah, and I want to correct, it was 33 minutes. Just so if people come back to it, they're like, you're not, it's 33 minutes. But
he's a number one suspect. And the head detective is talking to him off the record.
Which I think...
What the fuck is going on?
Exactly. Which I think we should note, too, is in the deposition of Tim Matouk and Andrew Pazachowski, Tim Matouk lied under oath. So the question by officials were asked, do you know Andrew Pazachowski? He says, I do. Question asked was, how do you know him? And his answer was, just through a professional working relationship. He worked in Grosse Pointe Woods. I worked at Harper Woods, and we were sister cities borderlining each other. And through either patrol or investigations, we've crossed paths a few times. And then it says, do you have a relationship with him outside of a professional one? And Tim Matouk answers, no, I do not. Well, then why are you contacting him on his personal cell phone?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but this is where officials like Andrew Pazachowski should have drawn the line and said, okay, you are considered a person of interest until we can further examine the case and further look at information. That right there is crossing the line.
Well, he's talking to him for 42 minutes about how they're going to cover up the body recovery. Because, you have to realize that they're all covering this up. And her body was never supposed to be found. It was supposed to be hit by a freighter and probably split into a billion pieces. We'd probably still be looking for her, right? If that was the case. So the fact that her body was actually found was a shock. And that explains why, it was a panic. Like, the farm's police run over and try to tell the Canadians that she was mentally ill and suicidal so they would rule it a suicide. But why? Why would you do that? There's no record of her having mental illness. So why would you go... First of all, it's not your case anymore at Grosse Pointe Farms, but yet you took the initiative to run over there as fast as you can to give them a false narrative in hopes that they would rule it a suicide. And I mean, this is all part of the cover-up.
Yes, and I also want to note, so Mike McCarthy was the head detective of Grosse Pointe Farms at the time, and he is also on Tim Matouk's phone records. 5 times. And 2 of those times were the day after Joann went missing. And the conversation was not an incoming call, they were outgoing calls. So Tim Matouk contacted Mike McCarthy, who is head of the Grosse Pointe Farms, the day after Joann goes missing, and they talk for 15 minutes on that first day.
Yeah, he's calling to tell him, hey, man, let's make sure that the story stays the same.
Mm-hmm. And then also speaks to him for another 17 minutes on March 16th, was just 4 days before.
They should not be communicating with him. And by the way, if they are communicating with him, it should be documented. It's not documented because they're not talking to him. They're not investigating him. They're plotting something. They're trying to hide something and make sure that the cover-up goes as planned.
Yes. And back to Mike McCarthy, too. The deposition with Tim Matouk, they had asked him, have you ever at any time discussed with Mike McCarthy any of the facts or the circumstances surrounding the disappearance and or discovery of Joann Matouk remain? And Tim's answer was yes, one time that I can recall. And the question asked was, well, when was this? And Tim Matouk's answer was, it was right afterwards, maybe a day or two after Joann went missing. Relative of Joann's asked me to make an inquiry and call and find out what I could find out. Now, that to me is very confusing because at this point...
Which relative would have asked him to call? Who would ask him to call when he's the number one suspect?
If anybody that cared about Joann never would have asked him. John doesn't speak to Tim. You don't speak to Tim. Kelly doesn't speak to Tim. Your brother Michael.
Right.
Your dad. Right. None of these people that were looking and at the water's edge speak to Tim Matouk, except for Bill. And apparently Bill and Tim never spoke until after this, which we know was a lie. So I'm just curious about who exactly was curious of this inquiry and what family member.
Or it could just have been another lie.
Of course. Yeah. But it just goes to show that even on the record, Oh,
he was lying throughout the entire deposition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his
but
deposition.
Apparently cops can lie under oath and get away with it because, he's still walking around.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the phone records, I really feel like we should just release them in their entirety and just let everybody have at them. Because at this point, they're public. We've given it everything. I think that the people that want to clear their name on here, if they want to talk, they're more than willing to talk. And we're at a point now where we are starting to put more pieces together. There are more people that are coming forward, I think, now.
No, absolutely. But you have to also understand that more than half the people on his phone records don't want to associate with him and are lying about the fact that they ever associated with him, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Who's William A. Roslin? Why does that name sound familiar?
I don't know who that is. Yeah.
William Roslin ran for the judge of the 6th District Court in 2012.
Oh.
Well, that's great. Well, he talks to him a lot on here too. Just as I told you guys, every time I look through these phone records, I find something new every time. Every time.
I'm sure. Must have been another crooked judge.
So there's your what the fuck for the day.
Yeah, the girls call it my what the fuck for the day. Oh, he talked to him a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21 times.
Wow.
Yeah, so where we're at now, we've had a few anonymous people come forward and talk with us. In regards to a few different things, phone records, eyewitnesses, Paul Hawk, we've had all of it. I think the biggest thing right now is figuring out, I think really just nailing down some of the people that are in this call log and being like, okay, how did you know him? Why did you communicate with him? Why did you lie in your deposition? And then figuring out why these people are covering for him. Because there has to be a reason why all of these people are involved, which I think it goes to show, too, like Kelly and I were talking when we were together last time, that, you know, the cocaine in Grosse Pointe is very well known, but it's something, one of those things that people don't always talk about. And wondering if that's what was going through the store. But like we have mentioned so many times before, too, is that, okay, your mom, not that she wouldn't have cared about the cocaine, but it wouldn't have been something that they would have probably not killed her over.
Right. I mean, I think, you know, what the public and the viewers need to know is there's something much bigger going on here. And there's a reason why all of these people are covering for each other.
Agreed.
And there's a much bigger picture, you know, a much bigger organized crime going on besides just the murder of our mom.
And we're connecting this to other murders.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. There's been multiple other murders that have come up during our investigation.
A lot of people that are connected to Tim Matouk, which if you search any of our names, we don't have anybody associated with us that continually are murdered. I mean, Tim Matouk has a long list of people
that trail back to him.
Yes. Yep. And I think Paul Hawk, we've got Paul Hawk's brother's dead, your mom's dead, and then we've got Ted Kalasa, Paul Hawk's, or I'm sorry, not Paul Hawk, Tim Matouk's high school bestie, lover, we don't really know that scenario, is murdered in Detroit. And then on top of it, we've got David Widlack, a high CEO banker in Detroit that's found with a gunshot wound in his head in the same area. You know, there's a lot of...
He was a Grosse Pointer.
Yes.
So let's talk about David Widlack and my mom's similarities, right? Both Grosse Pointers, both find out something, both go to the FBI, both disappear, both found out in the water.
Both had their autopsies completed by Spitz. Not Warner Spitz, the dad, the one that just died. The young Spitz. Both of their autopsies were completed by Spitz. Both autopsies were found to be incorrectly examined.
Yes. Correct.
I've also heard through the grapevine that at one point, Bill in the wine store used to bank at David Widlack's bank. So I've heard.
They in fact did.
That is confirmed.
Yes.
That's confirmed. Yep.
So David Widlack is found with a gunshot wound to the back of his head, but initially when he's found, they're telling everybody, oh, it's a suicide, immediately. It's a suicide, it's a suicide, it's a suicide. Okay. This is 8 months after your mom. Weird. And then it is after they noticed David Widlack has a gunshot wound to the back of his head, execution style. So it's impossible for him to do it himself. They say it's a suicide, but the gunshot wound was completely missed by Spitz. It was never even documented at first.
Yeah, he said that the machinery wasn't working. I'm sorry, did you not flip the body over? Because there was a big hole in his head.
No.
How could you miss a bullet hole?
He was paid off to not see
Again, part of the cover-up.
And it's about drawing, and I think what it comes down to is all this stuff is out there. All this stuff is anybody who's looked into this case, you can find all this information. It's all online. The thing is we have to find somebody that's willing and able to come forward and talk. And I think that's the whole point of, you know, remembering your mom for her 70th birthday is this was not just a case you see on TV or just an episode of a podcast. This is somebody's like loved one. This is somebody's story. And we're coming back to this because we want to remind people that, you know, as much addicting people are to true crime and all of those things, like, this is a real fucking story. This is somebody's family. And we now are paying tax dollars for these people who killed her. Our tax dollars are paying their salaries. And at what point...
And also your tax dollars paid for their attorney fees because they covered up a crime.
True.
And they had to pay over $500,000 in attorney fees to defend them.
Was it that much?
Yep. Yes.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, so that's where your tax money is going, Grosse Pointe.
But Grosse Pointe is kind of known for this type of shady shit.
Of course. I mean, this is what happens in Grosse Pointe is not really talked about. Everything's kind of brushed under the rug, and it's supposed to be a beautiful place to live where nothing happens, and that's just far from the truth.
Let's explain, because we're obviously, you guys grew up in that area. I'm a Metro Detroiter, so I'm familiar with Grosse Pointe. Let's kind of explain to people the idea of Grosse Pointe, so people can kind of literally paint this picture in their head of this type of place and what it is.
Grosse Pointe is a old community. It's a rich community. It's known for generational money.
Yeah.
Old money.
Yeah, old money. So we're talking, from like 1920s, 1930s, generational money. And families, have resided there, and generations have taken over businesses, and whoever lives in Grosse Pointe and is born in Grosse Pointe stays in Grosse Pointe. Mm-hmm. We consider it a bubble, and everybody knows everybody's business, and it's a tight-knit community. But what people don't know, and people know that it's it's a beautiful place to live. You live on a lake, and you pay high tax dollars there, but there's a lot of bad things that happen in Grosse Pointe that nobody really talks about. And I think more and more, people are starting to, give a side eye to the community, because, you have not only my mom, but then David Woodlack, who also got killed. And then you have, a ton of other deaths in that area. There's, drug overdoses and questions about, things like that. So, there's a lot of, crime that is going on there that is, again, tried to be brushed under the rug and not really, brought out into the public eye.
So Kelly and I were just talking about that too when we were talking last, that the two girls that died of a drug overdose, and they were like normal girls. I don't know what you told me about it, Kelly, if you remember exactly.
It was sad. They, sisters, there wasn't a lot that we knew right out the gate, that they died, and they, that the drugs were likely given to them locally. Mm-hmm. And, it's very sad to see that, you think that you're buying something, if it was local, you're buying from a higher end dealer, if you will, someone maybe in Grosse Pointe, and you're not going to think it's laced with anything, and you don't, you think you're safer because you're from the better community and all the things that go with it. And, these girls died from the same batch of drugs that they were given or bought, and mm-hmm. It's terrible to see. But
I don't even think it was not just two girls. It went on to be I believe 6 kids in that community within 4 weeks span.
Yeah. And it was a pair of sisters of one night, and more kids to follow after that.
And again, this happens more frequently in that community than people are talking about.
Exactly.
And, it's very, very sad.
Well, and I think it comes down to the fact, too, people who have children that pass of a drug overdose, I think there's this stigma and this taboo around it where, people feel almost as if it was they failed, or they failed as a parent, and I think we need to remind people that, like, at some point, everybody is affected by drugs. And like Kelly had mentioned, like, it happens even in the communities that you don't think it's happening in. These high-end...
Oh, absolutely. But let's talk about where basically no crime occurs, supposedly, in Grosse Pointe. If you have these types of deaths happening, that drugs are laced with something, wouldn't you track down where the originator was from these drugs, who dealt these drugs, and at least have some justice behind that? I mean, you had all these people dying and still nobody's arrested. I haven't heard anything about, anybody tracking any origination of where these drugs, were bought from, who was behind it. Again, it's one of those things that, like, oh, but they must have just overdosed, and they just kind of walk away. No, you don't have 6, 7 kids at the same time in the same time frame that just may have accidentally overdosed. There was something in those drugs that killed them. Mm-hmm. There was some type of fentanyl, something else. So where did those drugs come from? You don't see, these highly paid detectives in Grosse Pointe going to find out the truth, and getting justice for whoever, distributed these drugs. And I think that, again, we're back to square one with, them not doing their job, and are they purposely covering for somebody is a question.
Yeah. And I think a lot of, obviously, the community is fueled by money. And I think at this point, all of these people that we've talked about, especially your mom, have all been collateral damage of the crimes that are being committed. And it's crazy because we've had so many comments on things where people ask, like, does this corruption go all the way up to the FBI? Does this corruption go all the way up to the state police? And we're just like, yeah, it does.
It does. And everyone should be concerned, because this is real. This is happening. This is where the corruption is. This is where it stands. You don't have 2 victims going to the FBI and then they're dead within a week of talking with the FBI, and then the FBI not doing a goddamn thing about it. I mean, all signs point to the FBI is more involved than we want to believe.
Yeah. We've had every roadblock on the way there. This is why we know this is going on.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's even, like, I mean, how many times have I said to you guys, like, I'm not going to commit suicide. So if something happens to me, right? It wasn't,
exactly.
It wasn't me. It wasn't at my family.
There we go. We put it out in the universe.
If something
none
happens,
of us are going to kill ourselves.
Yes.
Do we have that clear?
But, when it comes down to it, these things need to be talked about. And the only avenue that we can take now is social media. The only avenue we can now take is the news. We are going to take any opportunity to speak about the story. And I think that goes without saying. You two for 14 years have, I can't even... I mean, so much. I mean, how many times a week, a day do we just talk about the case? And this has only been you and I going on us for 6 months.
Yeah.
We're talking 14 years of fighting. And I think just reminding people that justice will be served. And you guys aren't giving up. You're not going to stop posting. You're not going to stop talking about it. As much as Tim Matouk goes online and we'll talk, flag our things and we did get a personal invite. Do we want to talk about that for a second?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So last week Kelly and I met up and we were making some phone calls because I felt like my approach was very nice. I always approach somebody with the aspect of, hey, I'm looking at the case. I didn't come into this right away saying, oh, Tim Matouk did. I wanted to look at everything and make a justified educational, what I saw, what I read, this is now what I believe, right? And I think I did that. Like, I looked through everything in depth. And now I'm on a firm belief, like, I know Tim Matouk did it, and I know the cops were involved. But that's the whole reason we did this podcast. So now it's like, okay, we're contacting all of these people that are associated with Tim Matouk, and we're like, well, what do you think? Where are you at with this? Why are you associating with the person that did this? So we had contacted one of Tim Matouk's, I don't know if you want to talk about it, Kelly. I'll let you.
That's okay. We can chat about it. We called one of his sons, and Liv, said who she was and why she was calling, and was, I'm sitting there listening. So she was very polite, very proper, very nice, and he started off with, wanting to know more of what she was doing and all of the things, and as she's explaining what she's looking for, just want to know his side of things and what he thinks of the case and of our mother and all the things. And he went from 0 to 100 real fast
the minute I mentioned the deposition, including Tim Matouk's ex-wife.
Right, laying out what she knew and what the information that she had. He went from wanting to know more and possibly talking to all of a sudden she's supposedly going to be harassing him if she calls him again, which is, again, this was the first phone call, and she was very polite the entire time, and that he had to go, and if she calls back, he'll have to take further action on her, and he hangs up the phone. To which we're like, okay. About 10 minutes later, we get a personal invitation. Michelle does. Michelle?
Wait, we have to for us, I have it recorded and I'm putting it in the episode before this, so people will already kind of hear a little bit. But
okay.
The fact of, like, we're all sitting there, so Kelly and I are together. Michelle, calls us and she goes, what the fuck? Tim Matouk just texted me. We're like, what?
For the first time in my entire life.
14 years since.
Right.
She's 40. How old are you? 43 years old. Never been called by Tim Matouk, texted by Tim Matouk, nothing.
No.
She calls and says, Tim Matouk just sent me a message.
He sent me a text message in a group message, actually, that's attached to Bill Matouk and John Matouk.
Who John doesn't talk to any of them either. So
nobody. I've talked to nobody in this group, and I haven't in 14 years. But let's talk about this for a minute. He sends me a message that the screenshot of the 9th annual celebration honoring Dan Jensen, chief of Grosse Pointe Farms Police, and then states, all 5 Grosse Pointes can't be wrong. Please join us in honoring a true pillar of the community. And then John responds, Dan Jensen will be in prison, like the both of you. Thank you for giving me a big favor. There's no more Warren. Now, why I set you up, you're starting to figure out that your IQs are 60 or 70. I don't even really know what that means, but it's funny. Then John goes on to say, HBO, Dateline, NBC, Nancy Grace think Dan Jensen's the biggest criminal ever, but the two of you fucking uneducated nobodies think he's great and so perfect. It was so awesome with the FBI today, and by the way, they're on to Todd Flood. Okay. So Todd Flood is an attorney that Tim Matouk is close with and worked with Wayne County for a long time. I think everyone knows who Todd Flood is. So anyway, then John goes on to say, there will be lots of planes at that event. Watch. Maybe more than ever. Let's spend 25, 30,000. Let's go. What Grosse Pointe Chamber really cares about, and see if somehow someone killed one of your kids. Would you be okay with it? Yes or no? that's kind of a crazy thing to say. But anyway, so then he goes on, Tim Matouk goes on.
He sends
to
a
say to
photo.
John,
We have to remember, he sends a screenshot of the podcast logo.
I have to mention that. Not only does he send this 9th annual celebration invitation, he then sends a screenshot of the podcast of the picture of Dan Jensen
that we put out on for No One Knows this pod.
And Tim goes on to say, everyone knows it was you who robbed her, it was you who deceived her, and it was you who Hawk saw down at the lake. Deny and spin it any way you want. Well, Tim, that's easy to say after, Hawk's dead, that it was John that he saw, not you, even though he's been saying it was you the entire time.
The entire time.
And then John goes on to say, just to end the conversation, Tim, you are officially the O.J. Simpson of Southeast Michigan. By the time HBO is done with it, it will be the whole country. And that's basically how it ends.
And we're only laughing because like,
it's so ridiculous. I mean, and first of all, what am I doing in a group message with
that's why
I have no idea.
Like 3 psychopaths and you. How do like, no.
And Bill doesn't say anything. So like, and we should end with the fact that John told Tim,
but also then realized that Tim realized that I had sent this over to you and then stopped messaging the group.
Yeah. And not only that, but John had told Tim, like, why don't you go be a pedophile again? And then there was like crickets. There was never a response. So.
Oh yes, he did. He told him to go be a pedophile again.
Yeah.
That was how he ended the conversation.
And there hasn't been a peep since, so there we go.
Yeah. So that was the day that Michelle was in a group text with 3 uncles and a cousin, or 2 uncles and a cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
So this is where we're at with the pod. This is where we're at with everything. I feel like we've been super transparent with everybody on everything that we're finding. And I think just reminding people that this is obviously a podcast, and the importance of releasing episodes, but also like navigating through finding new evidence, what we're finding, how we're finding it, and then investigating that evidence. And
I do think it's important to state that you have connected Tim to other crimes that we haven't even spoken about on today's episode, but you will be revealing in time.
Yes, I think that's huge. We have, not only us, but there's been other people that have come forward that are connected to Tim Matouk, that have connected him to more crimes.
Which is going to blow everybody's mind. Once that is revealed.
Which is a long time coming unsolved murders in Michigan.
So much more to come.
In Southeast Michigan.
Yes. I don't want to give too much info. Yeah. Worse than O.J. Simpson. But, do you guys have any last things?
This goes way beyond an O.J. Simpson case.
This is bad. Do you guys have any last things that you guys want to say or mention or talk about your mom about? And anything, really.
I just think, obviously, she would have been 70 years old this coming Tuesday, which is crazy to think. She would have been kind of an old lady, But, yeah, it's just, the time that passes and, the time that we lost with her, 15 years and, how much growth we've had in 15 years and, just hope that people, will continue to follow this case and that we will, soon with, what we have even further uncovered, see justice.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And I think the more we share this with people far and wide, the more people that talk about it, social media it's it truly is so great for things like this, because so good can come out of it. Such a horrible, scenario and situation, but using social media as a platform to talk and people to be able to physically see, what was that, Kelly?
So then we won't stop talking about it.
Yeah, everybody can, and not only that, but being able to physically show people, like, these are this is the crime, I'm putting in quotes, this is the crime scene, this is these, quote, footprints, these are, we're able to showcase all of these things that really start getting people freaking questioning. Like, wait, are they seeing the same thing I'm seeing? Because I'm not seeing what the cops are saying was there.
Right. And I think, as disturbing as our mom's case is, I think what we've uncovered further in additional crimes that have come up that are connected to Tim Matouk is even worse than what happened to our mom. And when people are thinking, what could be worse than what happened to your mom? Well, just wait, stay tuned, and see how disgusting and disturbing what we have slowly uncovered here, will be revealed, and it will be mind-blowing.
Yeah, it really makes you question, like, your mom was such a... It makes you question everything you've ever known for law enforcement. Truthfully. And I've never been one to question those type of people. And now I'm just like... I'm constantly, like, looking around me like... is everybody like this? Is this normal? Is this like... and it really does go to show that David Widlack and your mom... These were small slivers of a huge... operation of things.
Yeah. And no one's thinking that we're gonna continue down this path, because we're small town people. They'll be so distraught with what happened, they won't be able to move forward. But with someone like our mom, we're not gonna stop until we get the answers. And if this is what we have to have had uncovered along the way, then here we are, and we're on this ride until the end. So, we're gonna help as many people as we can in the process, if that's what it takes. So, here we are.
Watch out for a billboard.
And watch out for a billboard, because you never know when you're gonna be on it.
Sorry, we just had to add that in there.
Oh, hey, right? You have to.
Or if you're John Matouk flying the planes up above.
You mean there's planes, there's billboards. That's fine.
Listen, your mom has the best fucking crew around her rooting for her still. So I think that's all anybody could ever ask for. You guys are, the voice for the voiceless right now.
Here we are. And let me just tell you something real quick, which is really, really, really cute. Within the last week, I've run into 2 different people, parents of people we went to grade school with. And within this last week, we had both of them telling us, about my mom and how great she was, and how they remember her being so cautious when we were young. And, the lady the other day was saying, your mom invented the helicopter mom. Like, and there's no way she would have left you guys. And, the other lady was telling me the same thing, and this is all within the same week. And, with her birthday approaching and Mother's Day approaching, it's just all the great reminders of what a great mom she is, and how this is the stamp she's left in everyone's brain, and in their mind and in their heart. 14 years after she's gone, people remember this from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the true legacy of her really truly being like she was the helicopter mom, and just the place that everyone felt safe and coming to our house, and our door was always open, and
they felt safe leaving their kids at our house because my mom was the baby would be fine with her all the time, and she was just that staple for everybody across the board.
And let's remember this. The one thing that she always said is that she was keeping us away from Tim Matouk because he was what she considered, quote unquote, a sick fuck. Not an asshole, not a piece of shit. She called him a sick fuck. And remember these quotes right now, because as we move forward and explain to you what we are uncovering about what he's done, it has nothing to do. This is beyond just the murder of our mom and what that is. But this is going way deeper. And our whole life, she kept us away from him. And she said, you're not allowed to be around him. So she knew something about this man that we were protected from our entire life. And we didn't know because, you know, she protected us from whatever was going on. But unfortunately, we've come to find out what was going on. And I think that's something that, you know, everyone's soon going to know, and it's going to be revealed. And people are going to be mind blown, honestly.
And eyewitnesses coming forward from a case from how many years ago?
Yeah. We're talking 30, 40 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. What a fucking legacy your mom left, right? I didn't even know your mom. And it, you know, just through talking with you guys, it feels like, you know, that I know what the type of mom that she was in person. And the biggest thing that sticks with me too, when I'm like looking through the case, and I always call it the what the fuck moments, when I'll just text Michelle and Colin, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I found another thing. And you guys have told me multiple times, my mom always said nothing was ever so hard that you had to kill yourself.
Yep. Because it's not. And
she was driven by her faith. Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge...
That's not something you do. That's not something you choose to do in our faith. It's the biggest sin, and it's, you know, it's obviously frowned upon, and it's not...
And her faith carried her. So the idea of her even doing that, aside from all the doctor's notes and everything where everybody is saying that she was not suicidal, friends, family, doctors, everybody.
It's the most preposterous anecdote that we've ever encountered. Like, she would be the last person on the planet to do something like that.
Well, and I think that just makes it even 10 times worse, too. The saying that somebody killed themselves when they were murdered and they're not even here to defend themselves. That's just, that makes me sick.
It's disgusting.
It is
I guess
disgusting.
That's what we're here for, though, right? That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Did not expect us to be this loud.
Y'all are a storm to reckon with, right?
Exactly.
There we go.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys chatting with me. Obviously, I'll be in contact with you guys, and all this is for Joann.
Oh yeah, and just wait for the viewers to tune in the next weeks to come to see what we've really uncovered here, and what other crimes are connected, and connected.
Shit's about to get crazy.
It's going to get crazy.
Buckle up, kids.
Okay. Well, I will chat with you guys soon, and yeah, thank you again.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.